Welcome to TypeScript FM, the friendly podcast for TypeScript developers where we bring you news, updates, and interviews from the community with plenty of tomfoolery sprinkled in. I'm your host, Kamran Ayub, and I'm joined by my co-host and best bud, Erik Onerheim. Together, we're the two TypeScript fools. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the grab bag. The grab bag. We're going to do a grab bag. Grab bag. It's episode 12. We're going to do a grab bag episode because we have been very busy and haven't been able to prep.
Extremely busy. What have you been busy with?
I have been doing a lot of VGM Con prep, and it's been a lot of work. I forgot how much work it is to prep a booth. It's a ton of work. So I've just been nonstop doing print, doing vendor stuff, doing rental equipment, buying new hardware, buying stickers. It's a ton. And that's coming up this weekend, April 11th through the 13th. We will be doing VGM Con. So come say hi if you're in town.
Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be fun. Last time we did a event like this, I was there the entire time. And for 3 days, that's quite a bit. But this time, I'll be just doing a few shifts, which my wife is much happier about. But I'll be there talking about Excalibur pretty much exclusively. So I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've got to print out our bullet points, like our spiel.
Yeah.
Because I've forgotten what it was.
Yep. Well, what's nice is we kept notes, and we have like a Trello board and a checklist of everything that we need to do for these events. So it just keeps growing and getting more refined each time, which is nice.
Yeah. This time I'm doing a better job for my accountant of keeping track of the expenses. So I think he'll be very happy about that. Because last time I had to dig through my credit card statements to get all of the expenses. I'm also giving a talk at the IGDATC Wednesday this week. So that'll be in a couple days. I'll be talking about learning shader programming, and I'm going to repost it on my YouTube as well. So if you missed it, don't feel bad.
Well,
I'll have a link for that.
I think listeners will miss it because this is going to come out. Actually, they won't miss it because we're going to be releasing this today. On the same day that we record, we're actually going to be releasing, which is kind of a new thing. But that's just because we're going to be doing news today and not doing a big deep dive.
That's right. That's right.
Sweet.
I feel like a zombie because our toddler has been extra spicy lately, in addition to waking up at 5 a.m. for the last 7 days. Yeah, she is pushing out all four of her canines. So those appear to be the funnest teeth, to push out. And she just started walking, and now she has decided that her locomotion needs to be faster. So now she's running throughout the house, which has been really, really tough because, I'm like, okay, is there something dangerous in the other room?
Yep.
Like, are we cooking? Like, what's going on? So, now she's much faster that I actually have to have eyeballs on her at all times.
Yes. Yep. This is the phase where you basically have to watch them the whole time. Make sure they're not getting into too much trouble.
That's right.
We had an excellent trip. So as listeners know, we just got done with Arizona. So we were there for about a week. It was a lot of fun. We drove around Tucson. We went to Saguaro National Park. I got a cool hat. I'm not wearing it right now. And we did some hiking. Not too much, but some. And we drove up into the mountains up to 8,200 feet to see Summerhaven, which is like a ski resort. So that was really cool. It was actually snowing up there. So down in the valley, it's the Sonoran Desert. It was still like 60 degrees-ish because it's spring. But yeah, as soon as we went up into the mountains, it started to snow. And that was a lot of fun. So that was super cool. We watched the rest of White Lotus. So we're excited about that.
Fun.
And we started watching $1 Million Secret, which is on Netflix. You should check it out if you are into, silly reality shows. It's kind of amusing. The only thing that kind of sucked, that really sucked, was we had inclement weather on the way back. So we actually did have weather delays on the way in, but luckily our connecting flight was delayed also, so we were able to catch it. Not so on the way back. We got delayed on the tarmac, and so when we landed was when the connecting flight departed. So there was absolutely no way that we were going to catch it. And unfortunately, we had to stay overnight. We were comped a hotel and meal, but then we're just put on standby for these flights. And it wasn't until Monday where we could actually get a confirmed flight back. And so on Saturday, we decided, I think we're just going to drive. I mean, it was a drivable distance, so we were able to make it back. But oh man, it was just stressful and exhausting. And you don't want 3 little kids stuck in the airport. Like, I can tell you that much. So even though driving would take longer, it was at least a guaranteed way to get back. And it was much easier to support and handle the kids in a van than it is in the airport and on a plane. So I think they did a really good job, even under all this stress, but still, I'll be thinking again when I look at these connecting flights, and if I have to do a layover, I almost want to be like, we're not doing layovers anymore, but we'll see. But other than that, it's just super busy. I am finishing up a course this week, 2 courses actually. So I'm just heads down on that. And that's exciting though. So I'll be done with that. And then we have VGM Con going on. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Fun fact, we almost missed our connecting flight in Reykjavik. And the only reason we made it was because I had a baby in my arms, and the customs people will just whisk you to the front of the line if you have a baby in your arms.
That's good.
And that was awesome in Iceland, because that was the only reason we got on the plane. I literally ran through the airport to the gate and sat down in the seat. I was soaking wet from sweat because I was carrying like a car seat and a bunch of baby gear and a child at the same time.
Yep. And we ran too, because we landed in Denver in Concourse B, but the connecting flight was in Concourse A. It takes like 20 minutes. So, I mean, the connecting flight was maybe delayed like 10 minutes because they knew some of us were connecting. But like, we ran and we tried to get there. We got to the gate like 5 minutes after it left. And of course, it was the very last gate in the A concourse at the very end. And there's no other way besides taking you got to either run or you have to take the moving walkways, and they're too slow if you're trying to get there. So you had to run all the way from Concourse B to Concourse A. Still didn't make it.
Yeah, we were stuck in the Denver airport once too, and we were coming back from California, and we were not wearing the proper attire.
Yeah, neither were we
in the Denver airport. So we had to go and buy like oversized hoodies to stay warm because we were that airport is frigid.
Yeah, it was cold. Well, my wife was saying it's going to be something that we look back on and sort of laugh about, but during the time, like at the time, is not fun.
Yeah, and not funny.
Nope, not funny at all.
TypeScript FM is sponsored by Excalibur.js, the friendly TypeScript game engine for the web. Like many of you, I got into computers because I loved video games and dreamed of making one, but game development always felt a bit intimidating. Instead, I built a career in web development, though that dream of making games never really went away. Then I met Erik, who showed me I could use my HTML, CSS, and JavaScript skills to create games with just a bit of game design knowledge and the right engine. Excalibur.js makes game development approachable, offering everything you need to build 2D web games. Arcade physics, sprites, animations, input support, and integrations with tools like Tiled and Sprite. It's beginner-friendly, yet flexible enough to grow with you. Our team has published 10 games using Excalibur, all written in TypeScript. If you're a web developer looking to dip your toes into game dev or sharpen your TypeScript skills, give Excalibur.js a try at Excalibur.js.com. Click the big tutorial button to start building your first game, Excalibur, a Flappy Bird clone. After that, join our friendly Discord community of web developers who love to help each other and share game dev tips.
Well, we're going to cover, I think, 2 weeks of news. So we're going to cover the weeks of March 24th and March 31st and just combine them all into a single grab bag episode. So I think one of the cool things, we'll just start right off the bat, is the proposal for Enums and JavaScript by TypeScript team member Ron Buckton. So, of course, this is stage 0, and this is something that I guess he's been working on for a few years if you look at the commits in the repository, but he refined it a couple weeks ago, and he submitted it. So now it's in the TC39 proposal process. So I think this is going to be cool because, as you are well aware, with the type stripping and erasable syntax only, we're not supposed to be using TypeScript enums because that's a runtime omit feature. But with this proposal, perhaps we could get our cake and eat it too, our enum cake.
I'm excited.
Yeah, and so that we can actually use TypeScript enums and they will be a ECMAScript standard feature, which will be super cool.
Yeah, and one thing that is cool about enums that might not be super clear is that if it's built into the runtime, the comparisons will be very fast because you can do a lot of optimizations. So like, for example, like comparing against numbers is very fast. So if your enums desugar to numbers at runtime, it's very fast to compare numbers in a CPU versus like comparing strings in like a runtime emit context.
Yeah, I think that'll be super cool. We've got some drama going on with Deno and Oracle. Do you have an update for us?
That's right. Ryan Dahl posted an update on their trademark fight for JavaScript between them and Oracle. This is interesting. The U.S. Trademark and Patent Office has an appeal process for trademarks. The argument is that they've abandoned their trademark. Personally, I agree. I signed the petition at javascript.tm, which is a great domain name. You should sign it too. But the trademark, as far as I can tell, by my non-lawyer, my space lawyer degree, feels like it's abandoned. So what's happening next is Oracle has taken issue with, as you might expect, with Deno's fraud claim that the evidence they submitted to support their continuing trademark renewal in 2019 was fraudulent. As a non-lawyer, space lawyer, I also would agree that a screenshot of the Node.js homepage does appear to be in bad faith.
Yeah.
So right now what's happening is there's a motion to dismiss, partial dismiss, and they want to have the part where, I don't know the legal speak, but the part where there's a claim of fraud dismissed. So they don't want the fraud part on the table. Oracle doesn't want the fraud part on the table. So they right now are going to litigate that fraud claim before we even get to the trademark stuff.
Oh, brother.
So so it's going to be a long process, likely stretching into 2026. But I feel confident that this trademark is abandoned and generic based on the community usage and the fact that they have not defended it, and the fact that they used a screenshot of Node.js as evidence. They also used a second specimen at the Oracle Jet page, which, if you're unfamiliar, that's a JavaScript framework that Oracle makes, and they're claiming that that's evidence that it's okay as long as one of them is not fraudulent.
So silly.
So
we made one little library that nobody ever uses, and therefore we own the trademark. And also, we don't do anything, and so we should keep it because we're Oracle, and you should listen to us, and we're big and bad.
Yeah. Oracle doesn't build JavaScript. It doesn't maintain the spec. It doesn't guide the future of the language. But for some reason, they have a trademark, which seems goofy. Yeah. So we'll include this in the show notes, the blog post, and you can feel your righteous fury, and then you can sign the open letter, which is now over 18,000 signatures, mine included. And it's got Brendan Eich on there. It's got big people in the JavaScript community. It's javascript.tm. Definitely go and sign that petition and make your voice heard. Make sure that trademark is dropped. Next up, Parcel 2.14 brings support for React server components, which is pretty awesome because the only name in the game for a while was Next.js. So now you can use React server components in Parcel, which has been a big favorite of ours.
Yes. Yeah, we use Parcel. We used it for several game jams, and I think we still maintain a V2 template for Excalibur with Parcel. Mm-hmm. It's really nice. And this is really cool news too, because like you said, only Next.js has had full support for React server components until now, and other frameworks are starting to integrate it. I don't recall if React Router supports it yet, but I would expect it to be there pretty soon, if not already. But having Parcel add support, now you can just use it without Next.js at all, so you can write React server components. So if you're interested in that, you should definitely check it out. And in my experience, React server components are a bit less complicated than they initially seem. They're fairly straightforward, even within like Next.js app router. So I think that's pretty cool.
Also, if you're looking to build browser extensions, the Parcel bundler has like a pre-cooked configuration for you to make it a lot easier to configure browser extensions. And
nice.
That's how I build the Excalibur debugger extension.
Very good. We got some cool news in the NPM ecosystem. So if you've ever run into an issue with your lock file being messed up when an optional dependency fails to install, and then you rerun npm install or npm CI, and it doesn't pull in the correct optional dependencies, that has been a long-standing issue And it's also one of the most upvoted issues with over 650 upvotes. Well, now that's been fixed thanks to Zcat. So that is super, super nice. So Jake Bailey from the TypeScript team, he said on Blue Sky, this PR is fixing what is probably the most critical and upvoted issue with NPM today. Broken lock files, missing platform-specific dependencies. And I'm sure that I've run into it a long time ago. I can't recall exactly if we did. And Erik, I think you were mentioning before the show that you might have run into it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the solution is delete your log file and try again.
That's the workaround.
Mm-hmm. Next up, we have the Mozilla JavaScript Sandbox vulnerability escape. So there's a post on Bleeping Computer that is worth a read. It also talks about some of the problems that Chrome has had in a similar way. Specifically, this vulnerability allows you to corrupt a child process and get the parent process to return an unintentionally powerful handle, leading to the sandbox escape. So, yeah, great and terrible things with JavaScript. So make sure you update your Firefox version to at least 136.0.4. And that's where it's fixed. And then the Firefox also fixed it in their extended release branches at 115.21.1 and 128.8.1.
Yeah, that's pretty serious because we rely on these sandboxes to be secure and to secure the code and isolate it from the rest of the system. So when there's a sandbox vulnerability, whether it's a container sandbox vulnerability or in this case, like a Firefox sandbox or a JavaScript sandbox vulnerability, it's no good.
Yeah. And according to this blog post, the vulnerability was being exploited in the wild, and it only affects Firefox on Windows. So other operating systems are unaffected.
Think you're lucky stars if you're on Apple devices.
Yeah, but they've had their own fair share of 0 days.
I'm sure.
Doesn't matter what platform you're on.
Yep. We got some cool community news too. Some highlights here. James has a really nice thread on Blue Sky of using ArkType and what it offers at a high level. And then he has a deeper dive in his YouTube video. So if you've been hearing about ArkType and you're wondering, what does ArkType do? What's special about it? What does it kind of enable you to do? I would definitely recommend checking it out. It looks pretty cool. And we still have to do an episode that dives deeper into these schema validators and type validation libraries. So we definitely will cover ArkType and some of these other ones in more detail in the future, but should definitely check that one out.
All right. Another really cool thing that came across my desk from YouTuber Typed Rocks, and I'll include the video about it, but you can run JavaScript and TypeScript inside of your Postgres using the PLv8 extension, which, some people might react in shock and horror to that. But it's pretty slick. And, one thing you might be like, why would I ever want to do that? Well, if you've ever tried to write a stored procedure in the SQL language, I forget what they call it, whatever the DDL is for it, it's a pain in the butt. It's a pain in the tush. And so this allows you to write a TypeScript, JavaScript language inside of Postgres. Really nice. I think it reads a lot easier. If you've ever been familiar with like other Sprock style languages, you could just set, when you do like create function, you set the language pragma. In this case, you'd be like language PLv8. And then you can go ahead and, write your JavaScript or TypeScript inside of your database, which I think is great.
Yeah, I mean, that's neat. I would guess that it probably has less performance than, writing a native whatever Postgres SQL. But still, like, if it's running on the database server, it's a bit less of a performance concern since it's not, running on the client or even just the server request, the web server, serving the request.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm looking at the docs, and it appears that the way it works, it's a Postgres extension. So there's a lot of these out there, but it looks like it embeds V8 right inside of the Postgres engine. So you can do great and terrible things.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, the database that I use, RavenDB, supports V8 also. I think it uses Gint, which is like a .NET JavaScript V8 integration or whatever. So you can write TypeScript indexes and you can even run code on the database server. But what's cool about that is that you can actually write the code in your source control code base and it gets deployed out to the database automatically. So they have it like it's a built-in first-class citizen, which is super nice. But yeah, it is kind of nice to be able to write whatever language you are writing your app in in your database too.
Yeah. And, if you're a Snowflake enjoyer and are feeding them gold bars, there is a similar way supported by Snowflake to write JavaScript, Python, and I think a few other languages inside of your Snowflake.
Cool.
API is totally different, though. I took a cursory look. It's very different.
It's neat. We have some cool stuff. Just a couple things, I think. Even though, so I was on vacation, but I was still, browsing the TypeScript feed on Blue Sky. And I came across, this was, I think, at the beginning of the year by FireSky. And he has an open source GitHub repo and project where he visualized all of like the ISBN space as books. So like it's like a render or whatever, a data visualization, and you can like fly to different books and stuff. And it's all written in TypeScript and a little bit of Rest, they said. So if you're interested in what that might look like and want to see a cool data visualization, you should check that out because that's cool.
I have a ton of cool stuff that came across my desk in the last 2 weeks that has significantly been distracting me from what I should be doing. First up is a new game on Steam, surprise, surprise, called Dark Deity 2. This is a top-down tactics game, turn-based tactics game that looks gorgeous.
That's my jam. I like those.
Yeah, I think you'll like it. It looks a lot like Fire Emblem. It's very crunchy, as far as I can tell. I have it and have not played it yet, but I am looking longingly at my Steam library and ready to play.
You suffer from the same disease that all my users of my app suffer, which is, backlog overwhelm.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not in the DSM, but, it is a condition. What else you got?
Next up is a library called Potpack, which is a super useful library if you're doing sprite sheet packing. This is from the people at Mapbox, which have been consistently awesome about open sourcing things. But you'll know if you've ever tried to do this, this is a hard problem, and they have a neat little tool.
Yeah, can you describe what does sprite packing mean?
Oh yeah, so that's a great question. The goal is to send as little binary data to someone as possible in a game. So if you can efficiently take all of the different images of a character or the different images in your game and just pack them into a single one, like put these rectangles in there in the right way and, efficiently use the space, you can, one, take advantage of your GPU because you can just load one image to the GPU. You can take advantage of network effects where you don't have to download as much image. You can take advantage of like cache effects because all your images are sequential. There's a lot of advantages to doing sprite sheets. And usually, for me, I hand pack these sprite sheets. So this is super useful. And you don't have to use these specifically for games. You can use them for like CSS sprites. If you got like a bunch of UI images, you want to pack, this need not be for doing games.
Yes. Yeah, I've actually done that before to optimize CSS images like background images. You can just use a single image and then use background coordinates to, clip whatever piece you want from that overall image. So you can think of it as like a jigsaw puzzle where you're basically rotating and trying to fit in, all your individual sprites and minimize the amount of white space. And then the whatever loader you use to load the sprite sheet knows about all those coordinates. You give it the data points or whatever, and it'll load it into your game in an optimized way. By the way, this would be a sweet feature of Excalibur to do sprite packing for you, either built in or through a plugin.
Yeah. We've been talking about having like build time optimizations because there's some things that you can pre-cook and you don't want to for example, you don't want to run like a sprite packing operation at runtime.
Yes.
That doesn't feel like a fun time for anyone. But this does feel like maybe a build tool where we can have like an asset pipeline where you can work like how you want to work with separate images, but then the build artifact falls out with optimized sprite sheets. All right, next up, as it becomes more and more clear that we are the product at Google, there is a great awesome self-hosted list where you can de-Google your life.
Ooh.
There are a lot of things you can use to like replace a lot of the cloud services that Google has. One of them that I'm looking at very seriously is Image, which looks like a almost one-for-one Google Images, Google Photos like replacement. Like the API, the user interface looks almost exactly the same. It's spelled IMMICH, and we'll include a link to that in the show notes. But as I'm getting more and more like into this and trying to save some money right now, I'm paying Google for more storage, for all these images. Do I want to be doing that? Well, I do like the interface that Google provides for Google Photos. What if I self-hosted this and did like Amazon Glacier to back it up or something where I don't have to think about it and it's super cheap?
Yeah, that would be really nice because we also use Google Photos and it's shared between me and my wife. And we've had problems where we don't want to pay for the extra storage. So she easily runs into the limits, within a year of however many photos she takes because she's a mother and takes lots of photos of her kids and videos. So the really terrible process that we go through is to archive each of the years, and I archive them. You can request that download from Google. It takes like a day or whatever for it to prep and send you the zip files. Once I have them, I put them on OneDrive as a backup, and then I can delete all the ones inside of Google Photos. But of course, the user experience, sucks there because you can't actually go back and view your photos or like easily search for them. So a self-hosted option would be pretty cool. So I might look into that too.
Awesome. Next up is something that's super cool that I haven't had a chance to play with, but I am really excited to, is Microsoft just announced, or they didn't just announce, but Microsoft has developed a super, super light VM called HyperLight. And they just announced the release of the HyperLight WASM VM as a quote-unquote micro guest that can run WASM workloads written in multiple programming languages. So it's kind of neat. There's a link to the HyperLight WASM repo where you can get started, and it's a Rust-based library. So if you like Rust, this might be a thing to take a look at. But this is, I think, a really great thing if you're looking at doing like running untrusted code in your app. Like if you have a need to run untrusted code, which you might, if you're a SaaS database provider and you want to let people run JavaScript in their database, maybe you need to run something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're a Cloudflare and you need to run untrusted code in your workers, things like that. So this is a really cool thing. I'm excited to play with this because I think this has a lot of potential for doing really cool things, even on like the serverless side. Like if you want to do like serverless type, like applications, you can do micro guests, and they're touting like some super, super fast cold start times with these teeny tiny micro guests. So like 1 to 2 milliseconds so that you could do like function calls.
Okay.
Even. So like this is like super like lightweight, HyperLight is the idea.
So this is maybe a silly question. How does this compare to like web containers? Because I'm familiar with like if you use Stack Blitz or you use Code Sandbox, I think they are using web containers to actually run your apps separately in the browser through like a quote unquote virtual machine. Is this something that's like server side only? Is this like a platform type of feature that it runs on the server and you can spin up these VMs, or do you know about that?
Yeah. So as far as like how web containers work, I don't know enough, but my guess is that they're a lot heavier based on what they're named. If I were knowing nothing about web containers, making a totally educated guess, if I remember correctly, it's using WASM Sandbox to implement a container-like stack to run untrusted JavaScript.
Okay.
And untrusted, I think it can actually run Node code in web containers.
I believe it can, yeah.
Yeah, so like it's simulating, as far as I could tell, like an operating system. But as far as your question about these HyperLight, it looks like you can use the different like WebAssembly interfaces. So there's the WASI interface that allows you to thunk into like an operating system. So if you were going to use like, you want to do sockets, you would use the WASI sockets interface and you would be able to do like socket type behavior. Now, I imagine you could also run this WASM in the browser, and future Erik will decide if that's true or not, because WASM is first and foremost started as a web technology. Hi, future Erik here. HyperLight WASM is currently only supported inside of the Windows hypervisor platform on Windows, KVM, or on dev/MSHV. And then WASI came along to allow you to run WebAssembly programs on the back end.
Okay, cool. So it seems like this could be, we don't know yet, but it could be a potential for like, I could just run this in my client-side app and start these VMs, but maybe more to learn there. It'd be kind of a cool deep dive episode to dive into these WASM runtimes. I mean, we covered JavaScript runtimes, but maybe more niche, we should be learning a little bit more about how WebAssembly works in the browser, because so much stuff now is sort of being compatible with WASM. So anyway, that sounds really cool.
Yeah. And, there might be kind of like a related corollary there with like assembly script, which is kind of a subset of TypeScript, which feels like it's right in line here. It's a way of writing WebAssembly using a TypeScript-like language. It is, not to be fooled. It is not like I'm going to take my TypeScript and compile it to WebAssembly. That is not what it can do. It is you write WebAssembly with TypeScript.
Okay.
So
Cool.
It's not like I have TypeScript and now it's going to be WebAssembly. It's more like I'm going to write WebAssembly and I like TypeScript.
Nice. I love it. Well, I think that's a nice wrap up to the episode. A little bit shorter today, but hopefully still enjoyable and you still learned some stuff. We are quite busy, so we will see you again, hopefully next week with a longer episode. But yeah, have a good day and night wherever you are.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. This is Kamran. I just wanted to thank you for listening to the show, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to see the show notes, you can check your podcast player or go to TypeScript.fm, where you'll see a list of all the episodes. If you enjoyed the show, tell your friends, and please rate it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, because that's how the show grows and gets discovered by more people. If you want to suggest news or a project that should be covered, or just want to say hi, email us at feedback@typescript.fm. If you want to follow us on social, we're both active on Blue Sky. I'm at Kamranicus.com and Erik is at ErikOnerheim.com. You can also follow the show directly at TypeScript.fm.